The Harlem Hellfighters, an African-American regiment that fought valiantly during World War I, represent one of the most remarkable and often overlooked chapters in the history of the Great War. Known formally as the 369th Infantry Regiment, the Harlem Hellfighters were an essential part of the American Expeditionary Forces, fighting on the front lines in Europe with exceptional courage, defying racial prejudices and discrimination in both the military and civilian spheres. Their story is one of perseverance, honor, and the indomitable spirit of those who sought to prove their worth in a world that sought to suppress them. The regiment's bravery during World War I not only challenged the racial attitudes of the time, but also secured their place as heroes in the annals of military history. The origins of the Harlem Hellfighters date back to the early 1900s, a period marked by widespread segregation and racial inequality in the United States. African Americans, particularly those living in Harlem, New York, faced systemic discrimination in nearly every aspect of life, from employment to education, and even within the armed forces. However, despite these hardships, many African American men felt a deep sense of patriotism and wanted to serve their country in the fight against the growing threat of German militarism during World War I. It was within this context that the 369th Infantry Regiment was formed. Initially designated as the 15th New York National Guard Regiment, the unit was primarily composed of African American soldiers from Harlem, although some white officers and a small number of other minorities also joined. Upon entering the war, the 369th Infantry Regiment faced immediate obstacles. In an era of intense racial prejudice, the Army was hesitant to assign African American soldiers to combat roles. Instead, many of the black soldiers were relegated to menial tasks such as labor, cooking, and unloading supplies. However, the men of the 369th had different plans. They were determined to prove their capabilities as soldiers, and their opportunity came when the regiment was assigned to the French Army, after being initially rejected by the American forces for frontline service. This arrangement turned out to be one of the most important aspects of their legacy. The French Army had a different attitude toward race, and they were more than willing to incorporate African American soldiers into their ranks. The French were also facing significant manpower shortages and needed every available fighter, regardless of race. The 369th was integrated into the French 16th Division and sent to the front lines of the Western Front, a brutal theater of war characterized by entrenched warfare, heavy artillery bombardments, and high casualties. This was a turning point, as the men of the 369th would go on to prove themselves in some of the bloodiest and most intense battles of the war. One of the most defining moments of the Harlem Hellfighters' military service occurred during the Battle of Belleau Wood, a pivotal confrontation between the Allies and German forces. The regiment's first significant engagement in battle saw them face the German enemy with unmatched ferocity. The regiment's actions during this battle were nothing short of extraordinary. Despite being outnumbered and under-equipped compared to the German forces, the Harlem Hellfighters held their ground, repelling multiple German assaults and keeping their position despite the horrors of war. Their bravery and resilience on the battlefield earned them respect from their French comrades and even from the Germans, who came to fear the reputation of the Hellfighters. The men of the 369th showed remarkable courage throughout the war, not only on the battlefield but in their unyielding commitment to each other as soldiers. Their unity and camaraderie were central to their success and their ability to survive the brutal realities of trench warfare. The harsh conditions in the trenches, where soldiers faced constant bombardment, disease, and a seemingly endless cycle of death, could easily break a soldier's spirit. But for the Harlem Hellfighters, their sense of purpose and determination to overcome the racial prejudices of their own country gave them the strength to push forward, even in the darkest moments of war. One of the most iconic and symbolic moments in the history of the Harlem Hellfighters occurred when they received their first major recognition from the French military. The French awarded the regiment the Croix de Guerre, one of the highest honors a soldier could receive. This recognition from their allies was a significant moment for the soldiers of the 369th, as it validated their bravery in the eyes of those who had fought beside them. The regiment had earned the admiration of the French, who respected the Hellfighters for their valor and combat effectiveness. This honor was not just a personal achievement for the soldiers of the 369th, It was a collective victory for African Americans in the armed forces, who had long been denied such recognition by their own country. The Harlem Hellfighters service was marked by a series of accomplishments that defied the expectations of those who doubted them. They served on the front lines for an impressive 191 consecutive days, one of the longest periods of combat service for any unit in the war. During this time, they endured the horrors of trench warfare, from the constant shelling to the threat of poison gas and sniper fire. But their perseverance and determination never wavered. In fact, the Hellfighters' performance on the battlefield was so exceptional that they earned the respect of the other Allied forces, including the British and Americans, who had initially been skeptical of their abilities. The Harlem Hellfighters' success in World War I had lasting implications beyond the battlefield. Upon their return to the United States, they were hailed as heroes by the African American community, who saw them as symbols of strength and courage in the face of adversity. However, their homecoming was far from celebratory. Despite their heroism abroad, the soldiers of the 369th faced the same racism and discrimination they had experienced before the war. They were not welcomed as heroes by the general public, and many were subjected to mistreatment upon their return home. This was a stark reminder that even the most extraordinary acts of bravery were not enough to overcome the deeply entrenched racial prejudices that persisted in American society. The Harlem Hellfighters' story did not end with the war. In the years that followed, many of the soldiers continued to fight for justice and equality in the United States. Some became prominent figures in the civil rights movement, while others returned to their everyday lives. But the impact of their service in World War I would continue to resonate for generations to come. Their bravery in the face of adversity and their ability to overcome racial barriers would inspire future generations of African Americans to strive for equality and recognition. The legacy of the Harlem Hellfighters is one of courage, resilience, and the belief that honor and duty transcend race. Their contributions to World War I were invaluable, and their actions on the battlefield helped to reshape the perception of African Americans in the military. Although they faced significant challenges, the Harlem Hellfighters emerged from the war as a symbol of excellence and a testament to the power of the human spirit in the face of injustice. In the years since their service, the Harlem Hellfighters have been honored in many ways. Monuments and memorials have been erected in their memory, and their story has been shared in books, documentaries, and films. They have become a symbol of African American patriotism and bravery, and their legacy continues to inspire those who seek to overcome adversity and fight for what is right. The Harlem Hellfighters' bravery in World War I remains one of the most remarkable stories of heroism and sacrifice in American history. Their courage in the face of overwhelming odds, their ability to maintain their dignity and sense of purpose despite the racial prejudices they faced, and their unwavering commitment to their comrades and their country make them an enduring symbol of strength and perseverance. Their story is a reminder that true bravery is not defined by the color of one's skin, but by the heart and soul of the individual who stands firm in the face of danger, ready to fight for justice and honor. In reflecting on the legacy of the Harlem Hellfighters, it is clear that their contributions to World War I were not just about military success. They were about challenging the racial boundaries of their time and proving to the world that African Americans could be just as brave, just as skilled, and just as deserving of respect as anyone else. The Harlem Hellfighters' bravery in World War I was not just a victory for them, but a victory for all those who have fought for equality and justice throughout history. Their story, though often overshadowed by the broader narrative of the war, remains a powerful testament to the power of perseverance, courage, and honor.